Bubba Wallace thought he had saved his night. 30 seconds later, NASCAR erased it. And then Denny Hamlin made it even worse. Wallace crossed the line running second at EchoPark Speedway. Then officials dropped him to 29th, wiped out 27 points, and his own team owner sided against him on camera. The Quaker State 400 had already turned into a marathon before Wallace's night fell apart. A long rain delay pushed the finish into the early hours of the morning. Fans stuck around in the stands. Crews sat waiting in the garage. Drivers stayed on edge for hours before the race even reached its final laps. And through it all, Wallace kept his car near the front, showing speed that made his team believe this could be one of his best finishes of the year. That mattered because of where Wallace stood in the standings. He was sitting 13th, holding onto a playoff spot, but his cushion above the cut line was not large. Several drivers behind him were closing fast, and one bad night could flip his entire season. Every stage point counted. Every position on the track meant something bigger than just that single race. This was not a night where Wallace could afford mistakes, and it was not a night where he could afford penalties either. Yet somehow he ran into both. The first problem came late in Stage 2. Wallace was battling for position and stage points, running near the front of the field with a real shot at extra points before the break. Heading into the corner, he lost some momentum and slid up the track. Then he pulled back down in front of Ty Gibbs, cutting across his path late. Gibbs made contact with the back of Wallace's car. Wallace spun out and lost his shot at stage points completely, dropping back through the field at the worst possible moment. After the race, Wallace and Gibbs met on pit road, and the conversation got tense fast. Wallace told Gibbs he had room to lift and avoid the hit. Gibbs said Wallace blocked him and left him nowhere to go. Wallace pushed back hard. He said hitting him square in the bumper meant Gibbs simply drove into him and that the block had been clean. Neither driver backed down during the exchange. Wallace summed it up bluntly, saying he and Gibbs just do not race well together, even though they both drive Toyotas and technically share the same manufacturer. That contact cost Wallace valuable points early, but it was nothing compared to what happened on the final lap. Wallace was running third, chasing leader Ryan Blaney, and fighting alongside Carson Hocevar for position. As Blaney moved to pass Hocevar, Wallace spotted a gap on the inside. He committed to it instantly, trying to go 3 wide for the lead. It was a bold move, and for a moment it looked like it might actually work. Wallace pulled alongside the leaders as they raced toward the checkered flag, and the crowd came to its feet expecting a photo finish. But in making that move, Wallace dipped below the double yellow line on the track. NASCAR reviewed the finish and ruled that he had crossed below the line while trying to improve his position. The penalty was immediate. Wallace's apparent second-place finish disappeared. He was placed 29th, the last car on the lead lap. The swing cost him 27 championship points in a single decision, turning what looked like a season-defining night into a damaging one. Wallace did not accept the ruling quietly. He argued that he never actually gained a position by going below the line. He said he stayed on the brakes the entire time, trying to give the spot back instead of taking it. In his words, he knew the move was risky the moment he turned in, and his car reacted like it did not want to be there. He insisted he ended up side by side with the leaders, not ahead of them, and that the rule only applies when a driver actually advances. Wallace and his team pushed back inside the NASCAR hauler, spending over half an hour reviewing data with officials alongside his crew chief. But NASCAR's competition director confirmed the ruling could not be appealed. The penalty fell under a judgment call written directly into the rulebook. The rule states that passing below the double yellow line to advance position results in a black flag. Wallace left the meeting with one short sentence. A penalty is a penalty. Days later, NASCAR's own communications team explained exactly why the ruling stood, even though Wallace never fully completed the pass. According to their explanation, the violation happens the moment a driver goes below the line while trying to improve position. Completing the pass does not matter. Attempting it is enough. That distinction closed the door on any argument that Wallace had done nothing wrong, and it settled the debate for good among NASCAR officials. So Wallace lost the position, lost the points, and lost the argument. But the story did not end there. It shifted to his own team owner, Denny Hamlin. Hamlin is not just a voice on NASCAR broadcasts. He co-owns 23F's Racing, the team Wallace drives for. But Hamlin also races full-time for Joe Gibbs Racing, the same team Ty Gibbs drives for. That overlap put Hamlin in an awkward spot the moment this controversy exploded across the sport. On his podcast, Actions Detrimental, Hamlin broke down both moments in detail, and his answers were not the full defense fans expected for his own driver. On the Stage 2 contact with Gibbs, Hamlin did not blame Gibbs at all. He explained that when a driver throws a block that forces someone to check up hard, that driver has to accept the other person might not lift in time. Hamlin said it was a tough ask to expect Gibbs to slow down that much. He added that he understood why Wallace made the move, since Wallace did not want to lose that spot. But the message was clear. Hamlin believed Gibbs was not in the wrong, even though it was his own driver who ended up spinning out. On the final lap yellow line penalty, Hamlin's answer was more complicated. He said Wallace's move to go 3 wide was genuinely his only real shot at winning the race. He pointed out that the track layout at EchoPark makes it hard to judge exactly where the racing surface ends, comparing the flat approach near the line to looking down a landing strip. He explained that once Wallace committed to the inside at that speed, avoiding the line completely became extremely difficult, and that the move itself made sense from a racer's mindset. But then Hamlin added the part that stung. He said the moment he watched the replay, he knew it would be called a penalty, because he understood the rule from personal experience. He said the rule is not only about gaining a position, it is about attempting to gain one. In other words, Hamlin agreed with NASCAR's decision to strip his own driver of second place, using his own history with the same penalty to explain why it was fair. So in one podcast episode, Hamlin defended Gibbs on the contact and defended NASCAR on the penalty. He never said Wallace was wrong to try, but he also never said NASCAR or Gibbs were wrong either. For a driver hoping his own team owner would back him publicly, that response landed somewhere between disappointing and confusing. This is where the story becomes bigger than one race. Wallace did not just lose a strong finish. He lost the argument in front of the entire NASCAR world, and the person expected to defend him most instead explained why the other side was right on both counts. Inside 23XI, that matters. Wallace is fighting to hold his playoff spot during a stretch where every position counts. He needs total support from his team, especially with rivals closing in behind him in the standings. Instead, his co-owners spent airtime explaining the fairness of the exact penalty that hurt him and defending the driver who caused his earlier spin in the same race. Some fans saw Hamlin's comments as fair and balanced, someone calling the situation exactly as he saw it, regardless of team loyalty. Others saw it differently. They saw a car owner who let his ties to Joe Gibbs Racing and his respect for the rulebook outweigh his role as Wallace's biggest advocate at the exact moment his driver needed one. Wallace still controls his playoff fate. He still holds a cushion above the cut line, even after this costly night cut it nearly in half. But the trust question now hangs over 23 SIs, heading into a stretch where every point and every ally counts more than ever. Was Hamlin simply being honest about a night full of hard racing calls? Or did he damage trust inside his own team at the worst possible time, right when Wallace needed him most?